Hello everyone. Welcome to Facts You Need to Know channel, a place to share interesting stories of countries around the world. Greatness Russia. It's a phrase that is used a lot to talk about Russia. Indeed, Russia is not only great in terms of history, culture. Russia is also great geographically in its own right. Russia is not only known as an economic powerhouse in the world. Nature and Russian people also make a lot of deep impression in the hearts of international friends. This is a country with a long history, unique cultural and artistic traditions, as well as being favored by nature with splendid and magnificent landscapes. Russia is also known as the land of birch. So what's interesting about this country? Let's learn about the largest country on the planet. Russia's full name is the Russian Federation. Russia is the largest country in the world, with an area of 17.1 million square kilometers. Russia is even bigger than Pluto. The area of Pluto is less than 17 million square kilometers. With its area, Russia occupies 1/10 of the surface area on Earth. It stretches across 11 time zones in 2 continents of Eurasia, and has a shoreline on 3 oceans, the Atlantic, Pacific and Arctic Oceans. The border of the Russian Federation is nearly as long as the Earth's equator. The country has up to 14 neighboring countries, and up to 37,600 kilometers of coastline. Russia's highest mountain is Mount Elbrus, with an elevation of 5,642 meters, which is also the highest mountain in Europe. Volga is the longest river of Russia, and the longest river of Europe, with a length of 3,690 kilometers. It flows from central to southern Russia, and then into the Caspian Sea. The deepest lake in the world is also in Russia, which is Lake Baikal. The Russians call Lake Baikal is the blue eye of Siberia. Lake Baikal is the largest reservoir in the world, accounting for 1/5 of the world's freshwater reserves, and holds more water than all of North America's major lakes combined. The landscape of Russia is diverse, from the desert to the ice, from the high mountains to the huge swamps. Much of Russia's territory is made up of steppes. The Russian climate is formed under the influence of many determining factors. The huge area of the country, and the separation from the sea of many regions, leads to a humid and subarctic continental climate. Across most of the territory there are only 2 distinct seasons, winter and summer. Spring and autumn are usually just short periods of change, between extreme low and extreme high weather. Because more than half of the country is in the north, much of Russia is covered in snow for 6 months of the year, and the weather is often harsh. The average summer temperature in Russia is about 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. In winter, the average temperature is from 0 to -40 degrees Celsius. The coldest place in Russia reaches a temperature of -65 degrees Celsius. Because Russia is so large, it isn't surprising that this country is home to a large number of different species ecosystems. The forests and steppes are home to many rare animals. Among them are some species such as Asian black bears, snow leopards, polar bears and other mammals. The famous animal of Russia is the Siberian tiger. It's one of the largest tigers in the world, native to the forests of eastern Russia. These tigers are life-threatening. As adults, they can grow to over 3 meters in length and weigh more than 300 kilograms. Why is Russia called the land of birch? Because the country has the largest number of birch trees in the world. Birch trees are grown all over Russia. Birch is a woody tree, tall, straight and whose bark is white. The birch usually blooms in the spring, the fruit ripening in October. The birch is associated with the daily life of the people, and has a special place in the culture of Russia. About the Russian national flag. The national flag of Russia currently consists of 3 colors: white, blue and red. Initially this flag was only used for Russian merchant ships. But the end of the 17th century, it became the official flag of the Russian Tsar, until the Tsarist regime ceased to exist. In 1991 on Christmas Day, the symbolic flag of the Soviet Union was lowered for the last time over the Kremlin in Moscow, from which the Soviet Union began to dissolve, and the flag was used again. White symbolizes nobility and frankness. Blue symbolizes loyalty and honesty. Red symbolizes courage and love. We will go back to the past to learn about the history of Russia. The earliest human settlements appeared in Russian territory only around 500 AD. That was the time when the Scandinavians moved south. to the areas around the upstream of the Volga River. These settlers stayed with the Western Slavs, and built a fortress, that later became Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. Kiev grew into an empire that ruled over much of Russia for about 200 years, then split into Ukraine, Belarus, and Moscow. Moscow of the 13th century was only a small transit area. But then the Mongol invasions led to a lot of people settling in Moscow. Until the 16th century, Russia had its first Tsar. At the end of the 17th century, Peter the Great became Tsar at the age of 10. It was one of the greatest Tsars of Russian history. Within more than 4 decades, he had made Russia greater and more European. Russia has about 120 ethnic groups, and they speak more than 100 languages. About 80% of Russians, according to their ancestry, are Slavs who settled in the country 1500 years ago. Others may come from Ukraine, or come from past Mongol invasions. Let's go to the interesting things of Russia. The coldest inhabited town in the world is located in Russia. It's the Siberian town of Oymyakon, considered the coldest inhabited town in the world. The coldest temperature ever recorded was -77.8 degrees Celsius, and the average winter temperature was -50 degrees Celsius. Only about 500 people dared to live in such harsh conditions. Almost all activities stopped when winter came. It's usually dark outside, and the morning hours of the day are only about 3 hours. However, in the summer, the number of morning hours can reach 21 hours. The temperature also increased to an average of 20 degrees Celsius. Russia owns the longest railway in the world. The Trans-Siberian Railway, with a length of up to 9,289 kilometers, crossing 8 time zones. To go the entire route, you will have to spend about a week, if there are no obstacles along the way. More than a century since the railway was completed, it has been likened to a sturdy iron horse. Although the equipment is quite simple, it gives visitors a very comfortable feeling. The Trans-Siberian Railway is considered one of the most amazing train journeys on the planet, and a means to fully explore and feel Russia. When it comes to the land of beautiful women, it's impossible not to mention the land of birch. Russia is one of the top countries, with the most beautiful girls in the world. But it is also a country with a high rate of gender imbalance. The gender imbalance in Russia is reflected in the number of women, who outnumber men by about 11 million. Specifically in 2019, for every 1,000 Russian men, there were 1154 women. So the other 154 women will not earn the other half of their lives. Russian women are beautiful and intelligent, know how to emphasize their strengths and hide their shortcomings. They are very strong, willing to sacrifice many things for love and family, willing to forgive, vulnerable, sensitive. If you have a Russian girlfriend, you should be proud of that. Russia has a special day called National Sex Day. It's a Russian holiday, also known as Conception Day. It takes place on September 12th every year, and is popular in the Ulanovska region. This is a day for Russian workers to have children, and it has worked. Because every June, the birth rate in Russia is much higher than other months. Also in Russia, a series of birth records have been set. For example, the world's luckiest woman in childbirth is Russian. Her name was Valentina Vassilyev, and she lived in the 18th century. She gave birth to a series of 16 pairs of twins, 7 triplets, and 4 quadruplets. A total of 69 children in 40 years with a man. The next interesting fact. Cats also have jobs and are well paid. Hermitage Museum is considered Russia's national treasure, and cats are its treasure. They are hired to protect priceless works of art from rats, and are treasured by the entire museum staff. Each cat even has a personal passport with a photo, and receives a regular salary. The largest city in Europe, which is the capital Moscow. It's home to 13 million Russians. This lovely city has a very unique architecture, when harmoniously combining modern and classical architecture. This place is home to many different races. The intersection of Asia with Europe creates a multicolored culture. Here you can admire the dome architecture, luxury palaces, and even theaters. Moscow is most beautiful in autumn, when the leaves are gradually turning yellow, to create a romantic scene. This is also the best time to travel to Moscow. Autumn is usually around June to September, when the climate is also pleasant, convenient for travel and exploring. This is also the end of the story of Russia. The country is known as the Land of Birch. Thank you for following this story. If you find it interesting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Now, goodbye and see you in the next sections.